I'm co-host James Ash.
And I'm co-host Phil Scaife.
Welcome to the Business Lockdown. So I'd like to welcome on today's show Gemma Gibson, who's from Honu Health Coaching, who's a health coach. Now, Jem, welcome to today's show. Thank you for being here with us.
Welcome,
Thank
Gemma.
you, James. Yeah, I was grateful to be asked. Thank you.
Well, we as always with our guests, we like to get an insight into the backstory of where you've come from, your journey. But I think first of all is what is a health coach? You know, there'll be many members of our audience thinking it sounds very Americanized, quite new. Is it unique? Is it quirky? What is a health coach? What do you do?
Brilliant question. And to be honest, I think this is one that I'm going to be getting a lot. It is a very American idea initially, and quite right what you say there. The training that I'm doing is through an American company, and a health coach is, I think one of the best ways to describe it is somebody who is kind of holding your dreams for you and helping you in habit change. So it's like an accountability partner. It's somebody who can sort of hold your why as to, you wanting to make changes. And it's a bit different to, your dietitian or your personal trainer. There's that element of life coaching that you can sort of add into that as well. So it is all of those things, but first and foremost, it's just kind of being your partner and your level of accountability for any changes that you wish to make, really. So we study functional nutrition. So that's one of the things that we look at. And because, it's a mindfulness as well. We've discussed it before, haven't we, James? It's that kind of thing of, it's not always just what we eat, it's how we eat. So I've got a couple of clients at the minute that I'm taking through a 90-day transformation program. And those levels of transformation are on, it's all lots of different levels that we're encompassing within that. So it's making sure that people have got somebody to hold them to the highest self, as I said earlier, and you hold that dream for your clients, and they check in with you, whether it be once a week, twice a week, whatever it is they need, and go from there, really, and hope to make some healthy habits. And our kind of tribe, as we call it, where I've done my training, their hashtag is spark the change. So it's just sparking positive change in anybody and everybody, whoever wants to take part.
Interesting, very interesting indeed. So what are you finding? I mean, this is uncharted territory for all of us in many different ways, but also in a lot of similar ways too, despite what industry or where we're geographically located. What are you noticing? I mean, are people struggling? Are you seeing kind of similarities between family, friends, clients? Are there, people? Is there a spike in struggle, or are we seeing people come together? Is there? How does that look in what you're experiencing right now?
To be honest, it's both, because like anything, it comes in waves. And much like what's going on out there with, these unprecedented times, it's kind of those waves. If you get this gorgeous wave of positivity and everybody coming together and putting things out there to, keep up people's spirits and make people laugh. And then there's that wave of kind of acceptance of the situation. And sometimes it might not always be positive, but I think what I've learned a lot over the last year has been that kind of just living your truth and living in that moment, but self-care. And it's something that I, put on my Instagram. And it's something that I think self-care, I used to think of self-care as quite a selfish thing. And I never used to do it. And I used to always put everybody else first. And that's just my default. And that's exactly what I did at the start of what's going on, in the UK, and that has been going on all over the world for many weeks now. I just went straight to my default and was like, who can I help? Where can I put my energy where it's going to be positive? And then I kind of burnt out. So this was my second wave of that acceptance of the moment, and devoting a little bit of time to self-care, because the thing is, what we say is self-care is not selfish. It just allows you to give more generously. So it gives you that space and that time to kind of give back in abundance instead of being burnt out. So you're lucky today. I put my face on because I knew I was on this. I haven't put my face on for days. I did a little bit of a face scrub, put a little bit of blusher on and put my eyes in. But do you know what? Just that, and you put your makeup on as well.
Yeah. Just made an effort.
This is all natural.
Just
the laughter lines are real.
Oh, we can't all be as naturally as positive and gorgeous looking as you, James.
I think I'll speak for the three of us here that we definitely are. We've got a certain high level of positivity, hence coming together like we are, and just trying to offer support and guidance to our audience. So it's just, I mean, we've had such a week with this channel, and the response has been phenomenal, and literally viewed by thousands. So it's just rapidly growing. So it's pretty special to be able to do this, you know, despite these challenging and uncertain times, and offering support like we are. But what have you changed? What personally within your own routine, Gem?
Well, do you know what? I think our bodies kind of crave habit, and our minds love that kind of adventure. Is one of the sort of things that we've tapped into as well. And you know, I'm massively creative, or I can't even say I just like to think so. I am, and you know, music and dance and anything creative really helps me. So that element of escape, I've kind of, you know, gone into that, but I've put it and I've reframed it into a bit of a routine. So what's changed for me is obviously like my level of activity, because I teach aquafit, I teach dance, I work in a school. I'm a very active person. You know, my kind of steps on my Strava or whatever it is you use, they're usually quite high on the level of steps in a day, but that's changed massively. So I think, you know, the exercise that I'm not getting, that had a big part to play in me kind of having a little mini dip in the middle of the week. But I did it in a different way, and I put a couple of videos out there of me exercising in the garden with the kids. So that was new, because although my kids exercise and my husband exercises and I do, we don't generally do it together. So that's something that I've brought in together, and we're going to do a family workout this afternoon, and just kind of, instead of just one of us doing it with the kids, we're all going to do it together and see how that goes. So it's kind of connecting in a different way. That's changed. But what I've kept the same is kind of my morning routine is exactly the same. I have the same, I've mentioned to you before, my hot water, my ginger, with a slice of lemon in. I've kept that exactly the same, because I think sometimes if we can keep our bodies in that routine, it's so easy, isn't it, in a time like this, to go, do you know what? I've got nothing to get up for. I'm not going to get up. I'll have breakfast at lunchtime, I'll have lunch at tea time, and then before you know it, you've smashed in a couple of box sets and maybe stayed up till 2 a.m. And I think as much as it's maybe easy to go to that, it can be a little bit dangerous for some people. So I think keeping a routine, even if it's just you get up at the same time every day and you acknowledge that you need some sort of exercise every day, and try, and I know it's difficult with like the shopping situation, but just try and eat as healthily as possible. So what's been really nice for me is I do always cook every day, every night. I always do the family meal, but now I'm kind of doing 3 meals a day for everybody. So I'm kind of really mindful that I do want everybody to be eating well, because it's making that connection between our gut and our brain. We are what we eat, aren't we? So I think if I can manage to maintain all of us, you know, living a healthy diet and a relatively healthy lifestyle and routine, it does help. And the kids are coping amazing with this situation. And my son was really upset at first when he was like, what do you mean I'm not going back to school till whenever? And I said, but we're going to do it as homeschool. And because we made such a fuss of it, and we sort of got some stickers and things like that, it kept their routine and their normality. I think us as adults, obviously we need to acknowledge that this isn't normal. This is kind of a new normal for us at the moment, but I'm kind of looking at it as a massive reset. I'm always, you know, a busy person, and it's allowed me just to kind of be with my thoughts a little bit more, and maybe just take a little bit of time to relax instead of going at it full pelt. And if we can take those positive elements from it, then it's not wasted, is it? And the biggest thing is it's just continuing that learning journey. I think there's a lot to be learned from this situation, and I don't know about you guys, but that's what I'm going to, you know, kind of take away from it. And just, it's a planet reset, it's a personal reset, it's a family reset. So from a positive point of view, that's how I'm going to look at it and learn the lessons.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Phil, you've Cooper, your eldest, has been finding this interest in this phase with a different way. So that this is our new normal, and you guys are finding your feet at home, aren't you?
Yeah, I think when you get people who need certainty in their life, and you know, Cooper's one of them, and so when the certainty has been taken away, then it's been a bit lost at times, and so routine has become quite an important part of what we've been creating this week. But we've also allowed him to create his routine, so he's had a bit more responsibility than he normally would, and that's how we've sort of come out the other side. And now we're actually looking forward to next week. There were some difficult times this week, like getting week number 1 under your belt, because obviously, like you say, it was new to all of us, and I couldn't get 100% present at home because of all the work stuff that still needed sorting out. So I was physically here, but mentally I've been elsewhere because, you know, just still in the workplace. And so I think, like I say, giving a routine back and giving some certainty back has certainly helped. So yeah, but it's all new. It's a new norm. It's a new norm for us all right now. Do you with your coaching, have you moved on to like a virtual platform for your health coaching then? Was it previously a physical one-to-one and now an online one-to-one, or is that not sort of the coaching model?
To be honest, all of it's online anyway. And
Right.
for my actual, I mean, I can sort of, obviously any kind of personal training clients who are getting a little bit of coaching with it, for them it's massively changed. But generally my health coach clients it's all online. It's done like this, whether it be over a Zoom call or a Facebook video call or WhatsApp video call. That's what I use. So the good thing about it is that way you can kind of connect with people all over the world. And it's what I like about it as well is it's kind of seeing people in their own environment.
Yeah.
Not that you get to always kind of see it, but like everybody's experiencing on the TV now, where you're trying to work from home and there's kids climbing on your head or there's a parrot squawking in the background or whatever's going on. It's kind of, when you're coaching people, although you ask them to kind of find a nice little space, somewhere quiet where we can chat, there's always going to be an interruption, and you get a better insight as to what it is that person needs in that situation. Yeah. So for me, that side of my business and coaching has been exactly the same. And if we stay in this situation for much longer, it'll just mean I have more time to do that. So again, kind of looking at it from the positive angle, I think in terms of for my clients, what's difficult is outside of our weekly check-ins and chats, they may have, like I had a client who had a body tracks book. I don't know if you've heard of body tracks, but it's like a body analysis where it tells you, you know, your water percentage, your visceral fats, your bone density, muscle mass, fat percentage, and all of that. And she was going to use it as one of our, what you call an anchor, where you kind of hold yourself to that anchor every time you feel like you're deviating away from, you know, what it is that you're planning to do and what you're trying to achieve. And she had that booked on Saturday, and obviously the leisure centres are closed, so it was like, man, so we're going to have to reassess that and give her a new anchor. But other than that, I think there's so much that people are probably realising they can do at home. I mean, obviously a lot of things are coming out of the woodwork that maybe a lot of people didn't tap into before, like the online workouts, like the, you know, nutritional advice and things like that you can receive online. But that's nothing new to me. That's normal for me. So yeah. I think that's where I sit quite comfortably, because the course that I'm on to become a health and a life coach and will go on to do my master coaching, it's all online. It's an American company called Health Coach Institute, if anybody's watching, and they're amazing. And it's just such an abundance of positivity and just a really nice energy that they share all over the world. And I'll be on with my, well, she's a skills lab partner, but we call each other study buddies, and she's originally from Puerto Rico, but she's living in Texas at the moment. So Clarima, if you're watching it, hey. Yeah, she's it's great that we can connect, and she's normally really, really busy, and she was struggling to keep her routine of food with her job. And now when we're kind of coaching each other as a bit of a, you know, refresh and practice and check in to see we're both still on the right lines, it's great because all the stuff that we were discussing before, she's able to be at home preparing her own meals and eating. And that's a lot of the problems what people have. You know, we don't have the time to feed ourselves properly because we're too busy, like running this gauntlet of it's work or it's business or whatever else. So I think it's a good reassessment for everybody. And if anybody does need any support with any of that, you can either check out my Instagram page, or if you want to drop me any messages, I'm more than happy to answer and just give people some ideas of what they can prepare, maybe on, you know, your kind of limited lockdown menu, or just something that could be a good immune booster or reduce any inflammation. And one of the big things that people don't always acknowledge is that our stress affects so much in terms of, you know, our perception, our health and diets and everything else. And that kind of blood sugar roller coaster that I've spoke to you guys about before, you can kind of get a grip of that a little bit more when you're at home. And I think you can get a grip of your diet generally when you're in sole control. It's so easy when we're working and going out, going to somewhere to grab a bite to eat for lunch, and then you meet your friends for dinner or whatever the situation might be. So I think when it's all in your control, if you're given the right information and the right advice, then it's almost like that chufty badge that you get your end of it, that you've done it yourself. And by being in control completely, knowing exactly what's going into your meals, you can move to a more whole foods diet, which is in turn less stress on the body and just better for your general health, really.
Yeah. It's quite interesting that, because the meal that we've probably struggled with the most this week has been lunch, because that's the grab meal, isn't it? That's I'm somewhere else, I'm not at home, I can grab a sandwich, I can grab a packet of crisps, I can grab an apple, whatever. It's the grab meal, isn't it? But when you take that away and you actually try and plan it, it's like, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
What does this meal look like? How, you know? So yeah, it's when you strip back those routines, and you're left with the purity of I need food, and I can plan that out to a certain degree. It's be interesting to see what we go back to at the other side of this, whether we all rush to go back to what was normal, and how much of this new way of life we keep.
Yeah, do you know, we've had exactly the same discussion, to be honest, Phil. It's something that Paul and I have discussed at length throughout this process. What is it that people are going to revert back to, and what is it that's going to stick? And I think what will be interesting is what is our new normal and what become our new habits is largely dependent on our response to this situation. So I think when we're kind of living in a stress response, we maybe make choices that are the right sort of choices for us at that time. And we've got to kind of accept that we've got to forgive ourselves a little bit for any choices that we make within that stress response, and use this time that we've now been given in abundance that we don't normally have to kind of just assess that a little bit and learn from it. And going forward, when we move out of this situation, try and hold on to anything that made you feel good, any habits that, you know, did sort of give you that higher vibration and that higher energy. Because, you know, sometimes we can eat food, can't we? And we eat it because we think it gives us energy, and then 2 hours later you feel absolutely ripped of energy. And one thing that I've been a bit naughty lately, I'd got myself down to one coffee and very little, you know, sugar. And I was doing that once a week, one coffee, and I enjoyed every bit of it, and it was a treat. But since this, and because Paul has coffee every morning, he's like, oh, do you want a coffee? And you go, oh, well, it's only one, and I won't have any caffeine after 2 p.m. And it's now become every day for about the last 4 days. And, oh, it's messed up my sleep, something chronic. So I don't think we acknowledge that some of the habits that we've got outside it's so easy to kind of go, let's go grab a coffee, let's go grab some lunch and all the rest of it, but we've not really acknowledged that some of those choices are not healthy for us for the rest of the day. So I think now I've got that bad habit, I'm glad I've got back into it, as daft as that sounds, because it's allowing me to acknowledge something that I'd maybe, you know, I was that into my new normal, you know, since doing my cleanse and everything, what I spoke to you guys about. And it was easy, but because somebody else's normals creeped into my normal, I'm a little bit off track. And I was like, ooh. So I think it's reassessing what is right for us individually, because at the end of the day, we are all so individual. And, you know, if you're coming together, living with family and more often than we normally do, it's acknowledging that some other people's habits might not be right for you. And we've got to kind of tap into what we know is right for us, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be some compromise, but yeah, important to have the discipline as well alongside that. Those moments of where we have to compromise. So, Gem, tell us about your journey. You know, how does that look, and then up to date, and why becoming a health coach?
It's a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. I think I was always going to become this. That's what I've found out at the point I'm at now. I was always going to do this without any conscious sort of decision from me, because my job or my life has always been something to do with health, in terms of, you know, I've danced since, oh crikey, I must have been about 6 when I got my first pair of dance shoes. And I mean, I'd started earlier than that, but I remember going into some sannies and going to a ballet lesson in my sand shoes, and it never felt quite the same. But yeah, so I started very young dancing. That then led me into becoming a fitness instructor and an aqua instructor and a gym instructor. So generally always within that. And I found myself looking for other things in terms of, oh, you know, should I get what people perceive as a proper job? And I started doing courses to do with like travel and tourism, but everything always led me back to my dance and my fitness. So when I was 22, I went to university to become a PE teacher, because I'd already been teaching dance and fitness in schools, and it just kind of made sense to go into teaching. So I started teaching in 2006, and I loved it for a really long time. And teaching is more than just a job. It is a vocation, and I was eating it, sleeping it, breathing it. But every time it was teaching with fitness, with health, or with some acknowledgement of, you know, a healthier lifestyle. And then when I had my son, I took to part-time. And for the first time in my life after having my son, I'd never acknowledged my own fitness and my own health. It was something that I completely took for granted. And without kind of going into the depths of it, I wasn't very healthy the other side of it. And I had a back problem, which I'd done when I was 18, but I'd worked around it. But when you've got a family and you're still trying to do a job and you're still trying to keep yourself fit, I had this back problem that was just nagging. I've never been an insomniac, but my son was, so I didn't get much sleep. So I think the combination of those two things just meant that it took me on a bit of an uneven path. I was always trying to get back to health and fitness, but it was around that time Paul set up his business as well. So it was just a bit of a whirlwind. And coming out of all of that, I decided to get out of teaching. And it was a really strange time, because I'd gone to work for some friends, and sadly it didn't work out. But for the first time in a long time, I had to acknowledge that teaching wasn't the only thing that was fulfilling me. And as much as I am still teaching through an agency, and I realised that I did need that a little bit in my life, health coaching was bringing those two things together in terms of my passion for health, fitness, and that holistic kind of thing that I've always been into, but also teaching, because you're giving people the benefit of those two things together. And it was almost by accident that I'd found the health coaching, because I was, like I say, I was in a job what I was really enjoying. I was teaching dance at a sixth form college, but it wasn't fitting the work-life balance in terms of fitting around my family. So with health coaching, you can work any time of the day that suits you, and you can do it from home. So that's always been my aim, to kind of get a balance, because as much as, you know, people think teachers have got it easy in terms of, oh, you've got the holidays off with your kids, and, you know, you're just off for 2 weeks at Easter, 2 weeks at Christmas, 6 weeks in the summer. You're not. And to all the teachers out there who've obviously stepped up in this situation, I hope people are kind of realising how much they really do, because as well as being a little bit of a babysitter and a counsellor and actually teaching kids things, it's a very taxing job. And although you love it, and there's very few teachers who are out there who aren't in it for some love of it, it's, for me, it was the compromise between loving my job and being good at it, and loving my family and being a good mum. And although people have got that absolutely spot on, I was in a phase where I was struggling with it. So I realised that part-time teaching was great, but to get a little bit more income, I needed something else. And then I sort of said to some friends, right, I'm thinking I'm going to go down the route of being some sort of holistic therapist. And they were just laughing. And I think, you know, one of my friends, Kate Hunter, she's an amazing jewellery designer. We was out with her and her husband for dinner, and they just started laughing and went, well, of course you are. Of course that's what you're going to do. That's totally you. And then I just sort of started looking for all these holistic kind of therapist jobs. And this health coach thing kept coming back. And like the question you asked earlier, James, I was like, well, what's the health coach? Because it's so new here in this country. And the more I researched it, the more I realised it's kind of bridging that gap between, you know, what people get told at the doctor's surgery. You know, say, for example, you need to quit smoking, or you need to lose X amount of weight, or you need to change into your diet, or you need to do more exercise. But when people walk out of that doctor's surgery, who do they go to? And it's all right saying, oh, well, I'll go to the gym and I'll do this, but there's nobody there who's holding that reason for them and holding that dream for them. And that's where a health coach comes in. I think they call them health trainers here now. Sometimes I've seen some doctors are kind of attaching those to the GP surgeries, but it's, you know, you're not a practitioner of diagnosis, you're not a practitioner of treatment, but what you are is kind of a practitioner of habit change, and you are helping people to change habits. And you never sort of perceive yourself as perfect, but on a health sense, I never thought I had that many bad habits. And when I started this course, I was like, my God, I've got loads. So it is a journey for us as well. And, you know, my sleep was a bad habit. I was going to bed too late and feeling sluggish, my caffeine, as I mentioned earlier, my sugar. So I was kind of living in this, well, as it turned out, it was a little bit of a stressful situation. And although, like you, I've always been positive throughout it, I'd not acknowledged what those things were doing to my body. And what's so nice now is, now I've acknowledged it and now I've dealt with it, you come out the other side just feeling so much more whole. And to pass that on to anybody is just, it's just amazing. Because, and I could get quite emotional speaking about it. Some of my clients are sort of coming to me with this massive list of self-sabotage and self-deprecation. And I've got this one client who, I was nearly in tears at the end of her first meeting. And I was thinking, this poor lady, I just want to do everything I can to change her perception of herself. And then our session that we had this week was incredible, because everybody's had a bad week, but this poor girl had a worse week than anybody for reasons that I won't go into. And she still showed up for herself to her session. Now, 4 weeks ago, she would never have even shown up to that session because she'd have put herself last. And she showed up and she left the session positive and, you know, like vibrating about what she was going to do next. And it's at moments like that when you go, wow, I was definitely meant to be on this journey. Because like you guys helping people with all this, if we can give back in any way in life, it's fulfilling, not just for that person, but for yourself. And, you know, it's like that thing on Friends, isn't it? There's no such thing as a selfless good deed. And although we can run ourselves into the ground with it, you can't deny the fact that helping somebody else makes you feel good, regardless of it being a business or anything else. I was always going to find something that helped people, because that's a big part of who I am. And I know who you guys are with a lot of what you do. It's giving something back feels far better than receiving for me. And although I mentioned earlier about that self-care and being able to kind of give back more generously once you've done that, it's finding that balance. And I think for the first time in maybe forever, I've reached that balance for myself, and if I can share it with others, then brilliant.
Yeah, excellent.
Wow, amazing. What's an easy win? What would you advise, you know, if people are asking, well, where do I start? Or they're out there and they're stressed and they're unsure, and what's some easy wins that you could advise people to do or to look at to get the ball rolling, to be heading in a better direction?
I think one of the things is getting rid of guilt, because the amount of times that people reach for something, whether it be a coffee or a brownie or something that we perceive as a naughty food or a treat, just kind of get rid of the guilt with it. Because if you have something and you enjoy it, your body's not eating it in that stress state of, oh my God, I shouldn't be having this. Because at the end of the day, if you eat something under stress, you're not going to digest it. And any nutrients that are in that food, you're not going to assimilate, because your parasympathetic nervous system switches off your digestive system. So if you're doing that, then it's that guilt and that shame that you're using around food that stops you from assimilating anything good out of it. So I think that's one thing. If you're going to eat something, enjoy it. If you're not going to be able to enjoy it through feeling guilty, then either eat it with something that makes you feel, oh, this is good and this is energized, and take your time. Now is the best time for us to take time over stuff. And we have a thing called a 20-minute meal. We should all probably take 20 minutes to eat a meal. But again, confession, I was lucky if I had 2 minutes to inhale a meal before I shot off to teach another lesson or had a meeting or something like that. So I think that's an easy win in the time that we're in. If you can take your time to eat a meal and give yourself, maybe pop a timer on for 20 minutes. If you're living on your own, hook up with a friend who's doing the same thing, put your fork down in between bites. The Mediterraneans have got it spot on. And I think in terms of how they eat and how they relax around a meal without that guilt and that shame and that rush, for me, that's an easy win. So, you know, if you can do anything like that in this time, that'd be it.
Awesome. I have found that like my food prep now, I'm still live with our team, so I'll still have our team on Zoom while I'm food prepping, but then I make a point of generally 90% of the time then coming away from work when I eat it. So yeah, I'm trying to maximize on my time while I'm prepping and listening and speaking to the team and coming up with some ideas, especially within the last week or two, that we're having to diversify and being reactive but as proactive as possible. But then, yes, like I've taken note. It's just like kind of sit down and even if I put some music on or a seminar that I can enjoy whilst I eat and just relax. I've certainly had a shift with that. So how are you when it comes to meal times with yourself and family? Now we're on in self-isolation.
Again, it's not changed apart from lunchtime. And I mean, breakfast has changed a little bit, because normally I've got to get the kids to kids club, make sure the packed lunches and everything are ready, and then get out to work. So what I usually do is I grab a shake. So I'll do my shake, which I think I've mentioned to you before, and I'll just load it full of fruit. Where plant-based, so I'll use either oat milk, rice milk, or something like that, some soya yogurt, loads of chia seeds, flax seeds, all those kind of things. But that's changed. I've got more time to have my breakfast now. So it's a bit of a luxury. So I'm having things like, you know, vegan pancakes and more porridge and more sort of laboured breakfasts. So that's a nice thing. So that's slowed me down. Lunches, I know you mentioned earlier, Phil, didn't you? That's your grab meal.
Yeah.
I prep my own lunches and take them in anyway. So I think, again, for us, being on this journey for me has helped us during this time, because one, I can make a meal out of pretty much whatever's in the fridge or cupboards or whatever. So I'm going to actually be posting a lockdown menu for people and a lockdown shopping list of things that you can kind of have in, because we're not all shopping. Like normally I go shopping for fresh stuff 3-4 times a week, because we go through fruit and veg like crazy. But in the 2 weeks before we got the hit here, I just packed the bottom drawer of the freezer full of frozen veg, and I made like a 7 veg soup the other day, but I made such a big batch that it's easy. So when, you know, maybe like today, for example, it was my day off making lunch. I've made lunch, breakfast, tea every day, but today I was like, I'm having a day off. I'm doing my call. I'm gonna, wash my hair and sort myself out. But that meant that Paul had to do lunch, but what an easy win for them. They just warm up some soup that's already done. And tea times, we always sit down as a family to have tea and make sure that's something that we always do. And I kind of try and schedule my clients and things around that. And any classes that I might be teaching, we still get to sit down as a family. So that hasn't changed. In terms of what we're eating, again, it's about being creative. And I think that's something in a time like this that is just another beautiful thing to come out of it, creativity. So you can be creative in the kitchen, you can be creative in artwork, music, whatever your thing is, but just that sort of thing of being creative in the kitchen. So I'm trying to think if I've made anything bizarre. Probably most of what I eat is bizarre to some people, but it's, for us, that's our normal anyway. So I don't think, to answer your question, that routine has not changed apart from, like I say, the crazy breakfast routine. And we now have 3 meals as a family instead of the one.
Yeah, but it's quite. I heard before on a seminar where someone said, "What would you try and do if you knew you couldn't fail?" Which I always thought was quite an interesting question. But maybe now we should be asking ourselves, what is it you would do if you knew you wouldn't run out of time? Because like one of the things you've brought in, because you've now got the time, you're not going to run out of time, is 3 meals around the table as a family. Whereas before this, BC, we were struggling to get that one meal, that one evening meal, and now you've got the luxury of 3. So that's maybe another thing to come out of this. Yeah, what would you do if you knew you weren't going to run out of time?
That's an amazing question. I like the first one as well. What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? I think the biggest thing with the fail one is fear, isn't it? And I've kind of, it's acknowledging your fear and kind of answering that question of, if that fear wasn't there, there's an excitement behind it, isn't there? And I think if you can tap more into the excitement than the failure, that's how I'd answer that one. With the time one, I'm always lost for time. And do you know what? This is going to sound nuts for some people. I feel I've had less time on this lockdown than I even had before, because probably like your wife would maybe acknowledge as well. I literally, on the Friday, it was my birthday last Friday, and it's the weirdest birthday I've ever had, but it just all ended up a bit crazy. And for all we were supposed to be going out and chatting around a table and, having a meal and a few drinks, it ended up being on the phone. So-and-so was dropping something off at the door. And then Saturday, Sunday was all about downloading everything to make sure I had everything to make our little school go right. I did a timetable. Again, I prepped meals. And it's only today when I've taken a little bit more time. And what I've done with that time is, like I mentioned to James, a little bit of self-care, guilt-free. I've used a face scrub. I've moisturised. One thing that I love doing, which I mentioned earlier, is dance. So I've said today, my new thing that I'm going to learn, and I think this is a good one to sort of answer that question, is learn one new thing. If there's nothing else for you that's going to come out of this, if you can learn one new thing, that'd be brilliant. So much to my husband's dismay, I went, I'm going to learn voguing. And he was like, what? You dance all the time. Why is this different to anything else? I was like, look, it's an art form in itself. Why don't we try it? And he was like, no. It's bad enough you've got me watching all this stuff. I'm not going to try voguing as well. But yeah, so I'm learning voguing film.
So that's the answer. That's the answer.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Gemma, we'll wrap this up, and I was going to ask about some useful resources that you could steer our audience towards. However, you've kindly committed to be sharing some of those on our Facebook group, so that's really great. So I'll hold off asking, because people can keep an eye out for those. Where can people find you, Gem? So website, social media hooks?
my website's going to be built shortly by you know who, but is that busy with many other things at the minute? It's not at the top of the list. But
Gem, you've lost your mic.
We've lost your mic.
Oh, back. Nope.
No. Just at that time, we lose audio from Gem.
Do sign language. Your
We'll translate the sign language.
there we go.
Just at the time that you were giving the plug for your channels, and it cooked dead.
It's always about other people, not about yourself.
Where can people find you, Gem?
So Honu Health Coaching is my Instagram, and also the same on Facebook. The website is not built yet, so as I mentioned, if you heard me say that bit, you know who's building my website. So that's just a little bit down the list of things at the moment. But yeah, so Honu Health Coaching on Instagram and Honu Health Coaching on Facebook. And that's
HONU, as in Honu, right?
Yep, after the Hawaiian turtle, which if you have a little tap on my Instagram and scroll down, you'll see why.
Lovely, like it. Well, yesterday we interviewed Jonathan and Christina from Moodbeam, and tomorrow we've got David Mankell on the show. So we were business heavy last week, and this week we've kind of decided to go, more about the health route, being more mindful, whether it's using devices, being holistic. From a fitness point of view with David as well, he'll be more focused within fitness, and it'll be interesting to hear how people are adapting. I know a lot of people who are screaming to be lifting weights at the moment who aren't able to, so how they've shifted their routines. So it's really nice. Yes, indeed. So thank you for joining us today, and it'll be great for people to keep an eye out, sharing resources on our Facebook group. So Gem Gibson, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Gem.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
You too. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Lockdown.
Please comment, like, share and subscribe to help build our global community.
We look forward to seeing you all soon.